I'll just be a few minutes, Alex muttered to himself as he parked his car in front of his parents' house. He had dropped by unannounced to grab some tools from the garage for a quick home repair. He didn't expect much, a brief hello to his mom, grab the stuff, and be on his way. As he stepped inside the house, the familiar scent of freshly baked cookies wafted through the air. It reminded him of simpler times, but those warm memories evaporated when he heard hushed voices coming from the living room. He froze mid-step. Are you sure he's not going to find out? It was Emily's voice, his wife. There was an unmistakable edge of panic in her tone. Relax, Em. He's working overtime again, isn't he? The guy practically lives at his office, replied a voice Alex immediately recognized. His younger brother, Daniel. Alex's heart thudded in his chest. A sinking feeling settled in his gut. Curiosity morphed into suspicion, then anger. Quietly, he moved closer, his shoes barely making a sound on the wooden floor. He peeked around the corner, and his worst fear materialized. There they were, Daniel and Emily, locked in a hurried embrace, whispering urgently to each other. Daniel's hand rested on Emily's lower back, while her fingers clutched his shirt. The sight made Alex's stomach churn. His voice, sharp and loud, cut through the air. What the hell is going on here? Emily yelped and jumped away from Daniel, as if she'd been burned. Daniel's smug expression faltered, replaced by a flash of panic before settling into a defensive stance. Neither of them said a word as Alex stepped fully into the room, his eyes blazing with fury. Alex, Emily stammered, her voice shaky. I didn't expect you to. I thought you were at work. Alex finished for her, his voice cold. Clearly. That's what you were counting on, wasn't it? This isn't what it looks like. Emily tried, her voice trembling. It looks like my wife is sneaking around with my brother. So go ahead. Emily, tell me what it really is. Alex snapped, his tone razor-sharp. Daniel crossed his arms, his confidence creeping back. Calm down, Alex. There's no need to blow this out of proportion. Alex's gaze shifted to Daniel. Disbelief and fury etched on his face. Blow this out of proportion? You're sleeping with my wife, Daniel. How much more proportionate can it get? Before Daniel could respond, Helen, their mother, entered the room. She held a tray of cookies, her expression calm, yet calculating. What's all this shouting about? She asked, setting the tray down on the coffee table. Ask them, Alex said, pointing at Emily and Daniel. They've been sneaking around behind my back. Helen's eyes darted between the three of them, but instead of the shock Alex expected, she sighed as though she'd just been told about a minor inconvenience. Alex, honey, let's not overreact, she said smoothly. Overreact? Alex's voice rose. My wife and my brother are. I've known for a while, Helen interrupted, her tone maddeningly calm. And you need to understand, Emily's needs are complicated. Alex stared at her, incredulous. What the hell does that mean? Helen hesitated, then continued, her voice patronizing. Emily's a young woman. She has needs that you've struggled to fulfill. It's natural for her to seek comfort elsewhere. Alex's fists clenched at his sides. So you're saying this is my fault? Not entirely, Helen replied, as if that made it better. But Daniel, he stepped in to support her. Support her? Alex repeated, his voice dripping with sarcasm. He turned to Daniel, who was watching the exchange with a smug grin. Is that what this is? You're just being a supportive brother? Daniel shrugged, his arrogance on full display. Thanks, Mom. We love you. Alex's vision blurred with anger. His fists itched to swing, but he forced himself to stay calm. Lashing out now would only give them more ammunition against him. He took a deep breath, his rage turning cold and calculated. You've all made your choices, Alex said, his voice low and steady. You think this is over? It's not. We'll see about that. Without waiting for a response, Alex turned on his heel and strode out of the room, ignoring Emily's frantic calls after him. He slammed the front door shut and marched to his car, his mind already racing with plans. This wasn't the end. Not by a long shot. Back at home, Alex sat in the living room, his mind racing. The betrayal cut deeper than he thought possible. Every glance around the house felt like salt on an open wound. His eyes landed on the mantel, where family photos stood proudly displayed. Emily's beaming face, Daniel standing beside him at his wedding, and the children's smiling faces stared back at him. It was all a lie. A dark thought crept into Alex's mind. He stared at the photos of the kids, replaying every moment of their lives. Could they? No. He shook his head, trying to dismiss the suspicion, but it grew louder in his mind. He needed to know. The next morning, while Emily was out, Alex discreetly ordered DNA test kits. The process felt surreal, as though he were outside of his own body. He swabbed his mouth, then carefully collected the children's toothbrushes for their samples. Each movement was precise and deliberate, fueled by equal parts determination and dread. Once the samples were packed and sent off, the waiting game began. Days later, Alex received an email notification that the results were ready. His hands trembled as he opened it, his eyes scanning the document. The words hit him like a freight train. Probability of paternity, 0%. Neither child was his. Alex stared at the results, his heart pounding in his chest. A numbness spread through him, followed by a surge of emotions. Disbelief, pain, rage. His mind raced back to every sacrifice he'd made, the late nights, the weekends spent working, the vacations he'd skipped to build a better life for his family. All of it had been for nothing. He spent hours sitting in the darkened living room, the DNA results clutched in his trembling hands. The house was eerily quiet, save for the occasional hum of the refrigerator. Alex's thoughts spiraled. He imagined confronting Emily and Daniel, tearing apart their facade, making them feel the agony he was enduring. But then something shifted. The despair threatening to consume him gave way to something colder, sharper, rage. This wasn't going to end with him wallowing in self-pity. They had made their choices, and now they would face the consequences. Alex stood up, his jaw set. He pulled out a notebook and began jotting down ideas. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming control. Every betrayal, every deceitful word, every smug grin from Daniel, it all fueled his resolve. They had underestimated him. That was their first mistake. For the next few weeks, Alex became a man with a plan. He had to play his cards perfectly, no hasty confrontations, no emotional outbursts. Emily and Daniel believed they had won, and Helen thought her favorite son and his accomplice would get away unscathed. That illusion was his weapon. At home, Alex maintained the facade of normalcy. He smiled when Emily walked into the room, kissed her on the cheek before work, and even indulged her small talk over dinner. The weight of his knowledge was a boulder in his chest, but he carried it without a crack in his armor. His calm unnerved her occasionally. "You've been so quiet lately," Emily mentioned one night as she folded laundry. "Work's been stressful," Alex replied casually, his voice betraying nothing. If she suspected anything, she didn't let on. During his lunch breaks, Alex visited a lawyer discreetly recommended by a trusted coworker. Sitting across from the attorney, he laid out everything: Emily's affair, Daniel's betrayal, Helen's complicity, and the children's true parentage. "This is quite a mess," the lawyer admitted, scanning Alex's notes and the DNA results. "Can you help me untangle it?" Alex asked, his tone firm. The lawyer nodded. "Absolutely. First, we'll draft the divorce papers. But before you file, you'll need to protect your assets. Start transferring any joint funds into accounts in your name alone. And we'll need more evidence if you want to make sure she doesn't walk away with anything." Evidence. That was Alex's next focus. At home, Alex planted hidden recording devices in strategic spots: the living room, the kitchen, and even the bedroom. He purchased a small, high-quality voice recorder that fit in his pocket, always ready to capture incriminating conversations. The first breakthrough came a few days later. Emily and Daniel were sitting on the couch when Alex walked in from the garage. Their voices hushed instantly, their body language stiffening. "Hey, everything okay?" Alex asked, feigning innocence as he placed his keys on the counter. "Yeah, fine," Emily replied, her voice overly bright. Alex didn't linger. He walked out, but not before subtly pressing the recorder in his pocket. Later that night, he listened to the playback in his car. "Do you think he suspects anything?" Emily's voice was anxious. "No way," Daniel replied confidently. "He's clueless. You've seen him. He's just shuffling through his day. Same as always." Emily hesitated. Sometimes I feel bad. He's been so good to me. But then I remember. Remember what? Daniel interrupted, his tone sharp. That he's boring. Predictable. And let's be honest, he doesn't exactly light a fire in the bedroom. Daniel laughed. Exactly. Don't feel bad. You deserve someone who can give you what he can't. Alex's hands gripped the steering wheel as he listened, his knuckles turning white. Their laughter felt like knives twisting in his gut, but it also fueled his resolve. The following week, Alex planted the seeds of his long game. He subtly started withdrawing cash from their joint account and rerouted his direct deposits into a new, private account. He told Emily it was to prepare for a potential home renovation, a lie she accepted without question. At the same time, he began gathering every scrap of evidence he could. Helen's complicity became an unexpected goldmine. She was brazen in her defense of Emily and Daniel, often making comments that Alex recorded without her knowledge. One evening, as she handed Emily a cup of tea, she said, "I know Alex can be difficult. You're so patient with him, dear." Emily sighed. "It's just hard. He's so distant sometimes." Helen patted her hand. "That's why you have Daniel. Don't feel guilty, sweetheart. You're just doing what's best for you." Alex played the recording back later, shaking his head in disbelief. His own mother was enabling his wife's betrayal. Meanwhile, at work, Alex's colleagues noticed a change in him. He was quieter, more focused. When asked about it, he waved off their concerns, attributing it to projects piling up. But in reality, he was setting the stage for a fresh start. He began networking discreetly, exploring job opportunities in other cities. By the end of the month, Alex had everything in place: the divorce papers, the financial protections, the recordings, and a growing network of contacts for his next chapter. All he needed now was the perfect moment to strike. That moment came sooner than expected. One Saturday afternoon, Alex returned home from running errands to find Emily and Daniel lounging in the living room, laughing over some shared joke. They didn't even bother to look guilty. "Having fun?" Alex asked, his voice calm. "Yeah, just catching up," Daniel said, his smirk firmly in place. Alex nodded and walked past them, heading upstairs. But inside, he knew the clock was ticking. Their arrogance would be their downfall. And when the time came, he'd be ready. The setup was complete. All that remained was execution. It was an unusually calm Sunday morning, the kind that begged for lazy conversations and warm cups of coffee. But Alex felt none of that peace as he finished arranging the living room. He'd set the stage perfectly, down to the folder of evidence placed neatly on the coffee table. Today was the day everything came crashing down. "Emily, Daniel, Mom, come downstairs, please," Alex called from the foot of the stairs, his voice calm but commanding. Emily appeared first, her eyes tired, hair tied messily into a bun. "What's going on? Can't this wait?" "No," Alex said flatly. Daniel followed, wearing a smirk that made Alex's blood boil. "What's with the family meeting? Did you finally lose a bet and need to admit I'm the better brother?" "Sit," Alex ordered, ignoring the jab. Helen arrived last, her brows furrowed. "Alex, this better be important. I was just about to call your aunt." "Oh, it's important," Alex replied, his tone betraying none of the fury simmering beneath the surface. The three sat down on the couch, their faces ranging from mildly curious to slightly annoyed. Alex stood in front of them, his arms crossed, his gaze cold. "I've been doing some thinking," Alex began, his voice steady, measured. "About us. About this family." Emily shifted uncomfortably. "Alex, if this is about work stress, maybe we can talk later." "No," Alex interrupted, his eyes locking on hers. "This isn't about work. It's about the lies. The betrayal. All of it." A flicker of panic crossed Emily's face. Daniel leaned back, attempting to play it cool, but his grin faltered. Helen frowned, her eyes darting between her sons. "What are you talking about?" Helen asked. Alex didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached for the folder on the table and tossed it in front of them. "Start with this?" Emily hesitated before picking it up. As her eyes scanned the DNA test results, her face turned ashen. She clutched the papers like they might somehow crumble the longer she held them. Daniel leaned over, curious, and then recoiled when he realized what they were. "What the hell, Alex?" he muttered, his cocky demeanor evaporating. Helen opened her mouth to speak, but Alex cut her off sharply. Don't. Just don't. I know everything. The room fell silent. The weight of his words seemed to pull the air from the room. Emily tried to stammer out a response. I can explain. Alex raised a hand to silence her. Explain? You want to explain how you had an affair with my brother? How you lied to me for years? How the kids I've been raising aren't even mine? Emily's lip quivered, and tears began streaming down her face. Alex, please, no, Alex snapped. You don't get to cry your way out of this. I gave you everything. My trust, my time, my love, and this is how you repay me. Daniel, who had been sitting in awkward silence, finally spoke. Look, Alex, it's not like that. Things just happened. Things just happened? Alex repeated, his voice dangerously low. Sleeping with my wife wasn't some accident, Daniel. Don't insult my intelligence. Alex, Helen interjected, her tone placating. You need to calm down. Let's talk this through as a family. Alex turned on her, his fury now directed at his mother. As a family? You knew. You knew. And you didn't just turn a blind eye. You encouraged it. Helen's face flushed. I was just trying to help. Help? Alex's voice rose. You've been protecting Daniel his whole life? But this is beyond disgusting. You enabled him to destroy my marriage. And for what? Because he's your favorite. Helen sat in stunned silence, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Alex pulled out his phone, his expression dark. You think that's the worst of it? Let's make sure everyone hears the truth. He pressed play on the first recording. Emily's voice filled the room, trembling with guilt. Do you think he suspects anything? Daniel's smug response followed, no way. He's clueless. You've seen him. He's just shuffling through his day, same as always. Helen's recorded voice chimed in next. Don't feel guilty, sweetheart. You're just doing what's best for you. The room grew colder with every word. By the time the last recording ended, Emily was sobbing into her hands. Daniel looked like he wanted to disappear, and Helen sat frozen, her carefully constructed facade shattered. You recorded us? Emily choked out. I had to, Alex said, his tone icy. Because I knew none of you would ever admit to what you've done. He stepped forward, towering over them. Here's how this is going to go. I've already filed for divorce. The house? Mine. The accounts? Locked. You're getting nothing, Emily. And as for you, Daniel, he turned to his brother, his eyes narrowing. I've sent every recording and every piece of evidence to your employer. Good luck explaining this to HR. Daniel's face drained of color. You're bluffing. Am I? Alex shot back, pulling up his email on his phone and showing the sent messages. You bastard. Daniel spat, rising from the couch. Sit down, Alex growled, his voice full of authority. You're in no position to act like the victim here. Helen tried one last time to salvage the situation. Alex, please. We're family. Can't we find a way to move past this? Alex laughed bitterly. Family? You stopped being my family the moment you sided with them. Emily fell to her knees, clutching Alex's leg. Please, Alex. I'll do anything. Just don't leave me. He stepped back, forcing her to let go. You already left me, Emily. You made your choice, and now you'll live with it. The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time, none of them had anything to say. Alex walked to the door and paused. I'll have the papers delivered tomorrow. Pack your things and get out. With that, he left, the door slamming shut behind him. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. The life he'd once known was gone, and in its place, he was building something new without them. Over the following weeks, Alex became an observer to the fallout of his calculated actions. It started with Emily. She showed up at his doorstep one evening, her hair disheveled, eyes swollen from crying. She clutched a tissue in one hand and a crumpled note in the other. Alex, please, she sobbed the moment he opened the door. I made a mistake. I was weak. Please don't do this to me. Don't throw everything away. Alex stared at her, unmoved. Throw everything away? Emily, you did that the moment you betrayed me. She dropped to her knees, her tears falling onto the porch. I wasn't thinking. I was lonely, and I was stupid. You have to believe me. I still love you. He crossed his arms, his voice cold. Love? You call what you did love? Don't insult me. You didn't think about me or our family when you were sneaking around with Daniel. Emily reached for his hand, but he stepped back, keeping his distance. I'll do anything, Alex. I'll go to therapy. I'll cut Daniel out of my life. Just please don't end this. Alex shook his head. You didn't give me a choice, Emily. This isn't something you can fix with empty promises. Go home. She lingered for a moment, her body trembling. But when it became clear Alex wasn't budging, she stood up, defeated. Without another word, she turned and walked back to her car, her sobs audible as she drove away. Daniel was next. Alex heard about his brother's downfall through mutual acquaintances. The recordings Alex had sent to Daniel's employer had done their job. Not only had Daniel been fired, but word had spread quickly, and his reputation was in shambles. One afternoon, Daniel showed up at Alex's office, looking haggard and desperate. Alex, Daniel began, his voice hoarse. We need to talk. Alex leaned back in his chair, raising an eyebrow. Do we? Daniel stepped closer, his hands clasped together. I'm sorry, okay? I know I screwed up. I wasn't thinking straight. Not thinking straight? Alex repeated, his tone mocking. That's your excuse? You had months, years, even, to think about what you were doing. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, his frustration evident. I lost my job, Alex. People won't even look me in the eye anymore. You've ruined my life. Alex stood up, towering over his brother. You ruined your own life, Daniel. Don't come here looking for pity. You didn't think about the consequences when you decided to betray me. Now you get to live with them. Daniel's expression hardened. You're really going to do this? We're brothers. Alex laughed bitterly. Brothers? No, Daniel. A brother wouldn't do what you did. Get out of my office. Daniel hesitated, as if hoping Alex might change his mind, but the icy glare he received told him otherwise. Without another word, he turned and left, slamming the door behind him. Even Helen, the ever-calculating matriarch, wasn't spared. After Alex exposed her role in the betrayal, her carefully curated social life began to crumble. Friends stopped inviting her to gatherings, and whispers followed her wherever she went. One afternoon, she appeared at Alex's door, her usual confident demeanor replaced by a weary, humbled expression. Alex, she began softly. Can we talk? He opened the door just enough to look at her. What do you want, Mom? Helen sighed, her shoulders slumping. I wanted to apologize. I didn't realize how much I hurt you. I was only trying to spare me, Alex interrupted. You weren't trying to help me. You were enabling them. I didn't think it would go this far, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought I was protecting Emily and the kids. Alex's jaw tightened. The kids? The ones who aren't even mine? Or did you know that too? Helen's silence was all the confirmation he needed. You've always had a soft spot for Daniel, Alex said, his tone filled with resentment. But this? You let him destroy my life, and you stood by, watching it happen. I made a mistake, she pleaded. Please, Alex. I don't want to lose you. Alex shook his head, his voice firm. You already did. Goodbye, Mom. He closed the door in her face, ignoring the muffled sobs that followed. Over time, Alex noticed the ripple effects of his actions. Emily moved into a small apartment across town, far from the spacious home they once shared. Daniel disappeared from their social circles entirely, his name now synonymous with betrayal. Helen, once the queen bee of her community, lived in relative isolation, her calls to Alex unanswered. But Alex didn't feel victorious. He didn't celebrate their downfall or revel in their misery. Instead, he focused on rebuilding his life. He threw himself into his work, reconnected with old friends, and began exploring new hobbies. Slowly but surely, he started to feel like himself again. One evening, as Alex sat on his porch, a neighbor stopped by with a curious look. Hey, Alex. Haven't seen your family around much lately. Everything okay? Alex smiled faintly. Just making some changes. The neighbor nodded knowingly. Sometimes, that's for the best. As the neighbor walked away, Alex leaned back in his chair, the cool evening breeze brushing against his face. He had lost so much, but he had also gained something invaluable: clarity. The people who had betrayed him no longer had a hold on his life. And for the first time in years, Alex felt free. Months passed, and Alex's life gradually began to change. He stood in front of the bathroom mirror one morning, looking at the reflection of a man he barely recognized. His face was leaner, his eyes brighter, and there was a confidence in his posture he hadn't seen in years. The weight he had carried, both physically and emotionally, was melting away. It hadn't been easy. The first few weeks after the fallout had been filled with sleepless nights and moments of doubt. But as each day passed, Alex found solace in routine. He joined a gym, not with the goal of revenge, but to feel better about himself. At first, the workouts were grueling. His muscles ached, and he often wanted to quit. But with every session, he pushed harder, channeling his pain and anger into progress. "Keep going, man," his trainer encouraged one day as Alex gritted his teeth through a particularly tough set. "You're stronger than you think." It wasn't just his body that was changing. Alex began attending a local support group for people recovering from betrayal. The first meeting was awkward. He sat in a circle of strangers, hesitant to share his story. But as he listened to others recount their experiences, he realized he wasn't alone. When it was his turn to speak, he cleared his throat and said, "Hi, I'm Alex. I'm here because, well, I found out my wife was cheating on me with my younger brother." A few gasps echoed around the room. The group leader, a middle-aged woman named Barbara, nodded sympathetically. "That's a tough one, Alex. But you're here, and that's a big step." After the meeting, a woman approached him. She had warm brown eyes and a gentle smile. "Hi, I'm Eleanor," she said. "Your story really hit home for me. I've been through something similar." They ended up talking for hours. Eleanor shared how she had discovered her fiancé's infidelity just weeks before their wedding. "I thought my world was ending," she admitted. "But then I realized it was a chance to start over." Their connection was instant and easy. They began meeting for coffee after group sessions, their conversations ranging from shared pain to dreams for the future. One evening, as they sat in a quiet cafe, Eleanor said, "You know, Alex, you're not the same person you were when we first met." Alex tilted his head. "What do you mean?" "You've found your strength," she replied simply. "It's inspiring." Meanwhile, the lives of those who had betrayed Alex continued to spiral downward. Emily's attempts to rebuild her life were riddled with setbacks. She had taken a job at a small boutique, far removed from the comfortable life she once knew. One afternoon, she ran into an old friend at the grocery store. "Emily, is that you?" the woman asked, her tone laced with surprise. Emily forced a smile. "Hi, Sarah. How have you been?" Sarah hesitated, her eyes darting away. Good. I heard about everything. Tough breakup?" Emily's face flushed with embarrassment. The shame was inescapable. Her social circle had all but abandoned her, and every encounter seemed to be a reminder of her downfall. Daniel wasn't faring any better. After losing his job, he moved into a dingy apartment on the outskirts of town. The confident, cocky demeanor he once wore like armor had vanished. One night, he sat in the dim light of his kitchen, staring at a stack of unpaid bills. His phone buzzed, and he glanced at the screen. It was her mother, Helen. "Daniel," she said when he answered, her voice weary. "How are you holding up?" "How do you think?" he snapped. "I've lost everything, Mom. My job, my reputation. Alex destroyed me." Helen sighed. "You destroyed yourself, Daniel." "We both did." For Helen, the isolation was the hardest part. The friends she once entertained at lavish dinner parties no longer returned her calls. She sat alone in her large, empty house, the silence deafening. One day, she mustered the courage to write Alex a letter. "Dear Alex," it began, "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I wanted you to know how sorry I am. I made terrible choices, and I've paid the price. I only hope you find happiness, even if it's without us." She never received a reply. As for Alex, happiness was no longer a distant dream. His bond with Eleanor deepened, and their shared experiences created a foundation of trust. One evening, as they walked through a park, Eleanor stopped and turned to him. "Alex," she said, her voice soft, "I've been meaning to ask, do you ever think about starting over? Really starting over?" He looked at her, understanding the unspoken question. "I think I already have," he replied. Their first kiss under the twilight sky felt like a promise of better days ahead. For the first time in years, Alex allowed himself to hope. One afternoon, as he packed up old belongings to donate, he came across a photo of his former family, Emily, the kids, and himself. He stared at it for a long moment before placing it in the donation box. That chapter of his life was over, and he was finally ready to let it go. On a sunny Saturday morning, Alex and Eleanor attended a charity event hosted by their support group. As they mingled with other attendees, Barbara, the group leader, approached them. "You two look great together," she said with a smile. "It's amazing to see how far you've come, Alex." Alex glanced at Eleanor, a genuine smile spreading across his face. "It's been a journey, but I'm finally where I'm supposed to be." As the event wound down, Eleanor took Alex's hand. "You know," she said, "I think this is just the beginning." He squeezed her hand gently. "I think you're right." For Alex, the road had been long and filled with pain, but it had led him to a place of peace. He had rebuilt his life from the ashes of betrayal, stronger and wiser than before. And as he walked hand in hand with Eleanor, he knew one thing for certain: the future was bright. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when Alex and Eleanor decided to take a stroll through the park. The leaves crunched underfoot as they walked hand in hand, the cool breeze carrying the scent of fallen leaves. For Alex, these walks had become a cherished routine, a reminder of the new life he was building. Eleanor's presence beside him was a comfort he never took for granted. As they rounded a bend near the lake, Alex noticed a familiar figure sitting alone on a bench. Emily. She was hunched over, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Her once polished appearance had faded. Her hair was unkempt, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. It was clear life had taken its toll on her. "Alex," Emily said softly as they approached, her voice trembling. She stood up slowly, her eyes darting nervously between Alex and Eleanor. "I didn't expect to see you here." Alex's steps faltered for a moment before he straightened. He looked at her with a calm but firm expression. "Hello, Emily." Eleanor squeezed his hand gently, sensing the tension. "I'll give you two a moment," she said, her voice kind but resolute. She stepped away to admire the lake, giving them space. Emily's lips quivered as she spoke. I just wanted to say I'm sorry," she began, her voice breaking. "For everything. For what I did to you." Alex crossed his arms, his gaze steady. "It's a little late for apologies, don't you think?" "I know," Emily said quickly, tears streaming down her face. "I know I can't undo the damage. But I've had a lot of time to think, Alex. About us. About what I did. And I regret it every single day." He exhaled slowly, his breath visible in the chilly air. "Regret doesn't erase what happened, Emily. It doesn't change the choices you made or the pain you caused. I was weak," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I let my insecurities and loneliness push me into doing something unforgivable. I hurt you, and I destroyed our family." Alex's jaw tightened. "You didn't just hurt me. You destroyed the trust we built, the life we shared. And for what?" Emily wiped at her tears with trembling hands. "I don't expect forgiveness. I needed you to know that I'm sorry. Truly." For a moment, Alex was silent. He looked at her, taking in the broken woman standing before him. The anger he once felt had dulled over time, replaced by a sense of closure. "Emily," he said finally, his tone measured, "I've moved on. I've built a life that doesn't include the pain of what you and Daniel did. I suggest you do the same." She nodded slowly, her shoulders sagging under the weight of his words. "I'm glad you're happy," she whispered. "You deserve that." Eleanor, sensing the conversation had reached its end, returned to Alex's side. She placed a comforting hand on his arm, offering a small smile. Emily glanced at Eleanor, then back at Alex. "Take care," she said, her voice barely audible. "You too," Alex replied, his tone neutral. He turned away, walking with Eleanor toward the path leading out of the park. As they walked in silence, Eleanor eventually broke it. "Are you okay?" Alex nodded, his gaze fixed ahead. "Yeah, it's strange. Seeing her like that, I expected to feel angry or vindicated. But I don't." "What do you feel?" Eleanor asked gently. "Relief," he admitted. "It's like a weight I didn't know I was still carrying has finally been lifted." Eleanor smiled. That's a good thing, Alex. You've come so far. He stopped walking and turned to her, his expression softening. I wouldn't have gotten here without you. She shook her head. You would have. Maybe not as quickly, but you're stronger than you think. Alex smiled, pulling her into a brief embrace. As they resumed their walk, the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the park. For Alex, it felt symbolic, a reminder that even after the darkest of nights, a new day always dawned. The next day, Alex received a letter in the mail. The handwriting on the envelope was unmistakable, Helen's. He hesitated for a moment before opening it. The letter was brief, but filled with regret. Dear Alex, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I felt I needed to write this. I've been reflecting on everything that's happened, and I realize now just how much I failed you as a mother. I should have protected you, supported you, and stood by your side. Instead, I let my biases blind me. For that, I am truly sorry. I understand if you never want to see or speak to me again. But please know that I love you, and I'm proud of the man you've become. Mom. Alex folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. He didn't feel the anger that once burned so fiercely. Instead, he felt a quiet sense of closure. He didn't know if he'd ever respond, but for now, he was content to leave it where it was. As the weeks turned into months, Alex continued to build his life with Eleanor. They traveled, tried new restaurants, and spent lazy Sundays reading by the fire. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the stars, Eleanor turned to him. Alex, she began, her voice hesitant. Have you ever thought about what's next? For us? He looked at her, his brow furrowing. What do you mean? She smiled, a hint of nervousness in her eyes. I mean us, moving forward, maybe even starting a family? The question took Alex by surprise, but after a moment, he smiled. I never thought I'd want that again, he admitted. But with you, I can see it. Eleanor's face lit up, and she leaned in to kiss him. In that moment, Alex felt something he hadn't felt in years, hope. The pain of the past had shaped him, but it no longer defined him. For the first time, he was truly ready to embrace the future. The church was filled with sunlight streaming through stained glass windows, casting vibrant colors over the pews. The air buzzed softly with the sounds of anticipation. A quiet murmur of family and friends gathered to witness the union. Alex stood at the altar, his heart steady but full. He adjusted his cufflinks, a faint smile playing on his lips. Today wasn't just about love. It was a testament to survival, resilience, and triumph over betrayal. As the music began and Eleanor entered the room, Alex's chest tightened. She walked gracefully down the aisle, her gaze locked with his, her smile radiant. In that moment, the weight of his past lifted entirely. This was his new beginning, free from the shadows of deceit. Months earlier, the fallout from Alex's revenge continued to ripple through his old life. Emily's pleas for forgiveness had turned into bitter silence. She no longer sent tear-streaked letters or showed up uninvited at his doorstep. Daniel, once the smug younger brother who thought he could have it all, had spiraled into obscurity. Fired from his job and shunned by colleagues, his attempts to rebuild his life were hampered by whispers of scandal. Helen, too, had paid the price for her complicity. Her social circle, once full of admiration and respect, dwindled to near nothing. The neighborhood that once praised her was now wary, seeing her as someone who had turned a blind eye to betrayal for the sake of favoritism. Despite a few tentative letters of apology to Alex, Helen had yet to receive a response. For Alex, the journey forward wasn't easy, but it was deliberate. After cutting all ties with Emily, Daniel, and Helen, he channeled his focus into things that mattered: his health, his career, and finding peace. He'd taken up swimming at the local pool, not just as exercise, but as a way to clear his mind. The steady rhythm of strokes through the water became a form of meditation, helping him reflect on everything he had endured. It was at a support group meeting where he met Eleanor. She'd been hesitant to share her story at first, but Alex could see the pain she carried. She'd been betrayed by someone she trusted deeply, a man she thought she'd spend her life with. As she opened up, Alex found himself relating to her in ways he hadn't expected. What began as shared conversations over coffee turned into something deeper. Eleanor wasn't just a comfort. She was a force of nature. She encouraged Alex to dream again, to see the world not through the lens of what he had lost, but through what he could still gain. Together, they explored new hobbies, from hiking to cooking elaborate meals. For every painful memory Alex had, Eleanor helped him create a new, joyful one. As the officiant recited the vows, Alex felt a swell of emotion he hadn't anticipated. His eyes met Eleanor's, and he saw a future untainted by deceit or regret. When he said, "I do," it wasn't just a commitment to her. It was a promise to himself to live fully, to embrace happiness without fear. After the ceremony, as guests mingled and shared toasts, Alex found a quiet moment to reflect. He thought back to the man he had been when this all started, a man who felt broken, humiliated, and lost. Now he was stronger, wiser, and surrounded by people who truly cared for him. A few weeks after the wedding, Alex received an unexpected email. It was from Emily. He stared at the subject line for a moment. "I'm letting go." Against his better judgment, he opened it. "Alex, I've thought about writing this for months, but I never knew how to start. I realize now that I've spent so much time asking for your forgiveness when I didn't deserve it. What I did to you was unforgivable, and I don't expect you to ever truly forget. I just want you to know that I've accepted the consequences of my actions. Daniel and I are no longer together. I guess betrayal begets betrayal, and I found out he wasn't as committed to me as I foolishly thought. Ironic, isn't it? I saw the photos from your wedding. Someone shared them on social media. You look happy. Truly happy. I hope you are. You deserve that, Alex. More than anyone I know. I won't bother you again. I just wanted to say this before closing that chapter of my life for good. Emily." Alex read the message twice, then closed his laptop. He didn't feel the anger or sadness he might have expected. Instead, he felt nothing. Emily's message was a reminder of how far he had come and how little her words mattered now. His revenge had been thorough, but his peace came not from their suffering, but from the life he had rebuilt. One evening, Alex and Eleanor sat on their porch, the stars twinkling overhead. A soft breeze rustled the leaves, and the distant sound of crickets filled the air. Eleanor leaned her head on Alex's shoulder, her hand resting on his. "Do you ever think about them?" she asked quietly. Alex didn't need to ask who she meant. He was silent for a moment before replying. "Not really. Not anymore. They're like a bad dream I woke up from." Eleanor nodded. "Do you regret how you handled it?" He thought about her question. "No. They needed to face the consequences of their actions. But what really matters is that I didn't let them define me. I'm here with you, and I wouldn't trade that for anything." Eleanor smiled, her eyes softening. "I'm glad you're here, too." As they sat together, Alex felt a profound sense of contentment. His life had taken twists and turns he never could have predicted, but it had led him here, to a place of love, trust, and hope. In the end, justice wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming what was stolen, his dignity, his happiness, and his future. And as he looked at Eleanor, he realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't just living well, it's living better than anyone ever expected.